So I'm Anthony Harries, and what I want to do now is take you on from what Tony Reid discussed in the previous lecture, where he talked to you about bits and pieces. Essentially, how do we do the title page? How do we write the abstract? How do we deal with acknowledgements, conflicts of interest, etc. At the end of the paper? So I'm going to continue with this example of recurrent tuberculosis and take you through it. So again, let's just go over the title page for principles. We have a title, and just to say, for some open access journals, they give you a limit on the number of characters that you can use in that title. So for example, Public Health Action, which is an open access journal, allow you 110 characters for the title space, and that includes spaces between words. So if your title is, for example, 125 characters, you will not get it into that box. So you have to play around, in effect, with trying to get your title fitting in to what the journal requires. You need to list the authors and their institutions. You need to list the corresponding author. That is the person who basically does the hard work of uploading the paper to the journal and dealing with all the responses from the journal. Usually the corresponding author is the first author. We need to write down the word counts, and I like to write down on the title page the word count of the abstract and the word count of the full paper. And again here, just to emphasize that for full paper, the word count starts at the beginning, the first word of the introduction, and ends with the final word of the discussion or conclusion. The narrative word count does not include the title page. It does not include acknowledgements and conflicts of interest and funding statements, and it does not include references or tables and figures. We also need to put keywords onto the title page, and we need a short running title. So here's our recurrent tuberculosis. So we've made our title Recurrent TB in the Malawi National Tuberculosis Program. Not a very exciting title, but nevertheless a title that explains what we have done. Then we have the important first subheading, which is authors and institutions. So we have Anthony D. Harries, Francis Gauci, John Kwanjana, and Felix Salani-Poni. And we have superscripts after their name, and those superscripts indicate the affiliations to which these individuals work. So for example, superscript 1 means that we all work for the National Tuberculosis Program, Ministry of Health Malawi, and superscript 2 means that Francis Gauci, in addition to working for the National Tuberculosis Program, also works for the National Statistics Office in Lilongwe, Malawi. So this is how we do it. If an individual has 2 or even 3 affiliations, those go according to the superscripts. We have address for correspondence, so this is Anthony Harries, National TB Program, Lilongwe, Malawi, with a phone and fax number and also an email number. Then I think it's always very useful on the title page to put down the word count, which was 1,999 words, the abstract word count, 200, the number of references in the paper, and the number of tables and figures. Because at some stage during your submission to the journal, you may be asked to state these. So if it is there, transparent on the title page, it is easy for you to get the data and put it in to the submission to the journal. We then have keywords, and keywords are what enables people to identify your article when they come, for example, to look at recurrent tuberculosis. So it enables PubMed, for example, to pick up your article amidst a whole lot of many other articles. So keywords here were recurrent tuberculosis, DOTS, Malawi, and operational research. And take note that a keyword can in fact be 2 words or even 3 words, but you separate the keywords by a semicolon. And then we have a short running title. Short running titles get put on the top of each page of your journal paper. So if your journal paper, for example, occupies 8 pages of a journal, each of those pages will have on the top of the page a short running title. Now again, beware, because journals have a limit to the number of characters you can put in the box. So Public Health Action, for example, says you can only have 45 characters in that short running title box. So here, recurrent tuberculosis in Malawi fits in quite nicely. Then we have the abstract. So again, Tony Reed has gone through this with you, but these are the principles. Essentially, journals have their own way of specifying how an abstract should run. So this is how the International Journal of Tuberculosis and Lung Disease, or Public Health Action, demand the abstract to be. No more than 200 words, and you have to have subheadings. And those subheadings are setting, objective, design, results, and conclusion. And those form part of those 200 words. So in fact, you only have 195 words to play with. So how are we going to do the abstract for this paper? Let me read it through. Setting. All hospitals in Malawi that register tuberculosis. Objective. To determine whether recurrent TB is incorrectly registered as new TB. Design. Cross-sectional prospective study involving a structured interview of TB patients. Results. There were 1,254 patients registered as new TB, of whom 94 (8%) had recurrent tuberculosis. Conclusion. Patients with recurrent TB are incorrectly registered and are being missed under routine program settings. Now obviously this hasn't filled out 200 words, so one could pad this, add more content to this as you feel fit, but you have to stay within that word limit of 200 words. Just to say, often for short papers, and many people in operational research write short communications or short papers, sometimes the journals say we want an abstract of 100 words and it's unstructured. So you put it in according to this structure, but in fact you don't put the subheadings. Now when the discussion and the conclusion is finished, before the references, often you need to put in acknowledgements, conflicts of interest, funding statements, and author contributions. So let me take you through how this would work for this particular paper. An acknowledgement, if you were, for example, doing one of our courses, would be something like this. This research was supported through an operational research course which was jointly developed and run by the Centre for Operational Research International Union Against Tuberculosis and Lung Disease and the Operational Research Unit Médecins Sans Frontières Brussels. And you can concoct this however you want. Generally, we in our courses like to acknowledge WHO and the Special Programme for Training and Research in Tropical Diseases, and we also like to acknowledge the institutions that have sent individuals to our courses where they act as faculty and facilitators. Conflicts of interest, a very short statement. Generally, these are conflicts of interest related to commercial ties with pharmacy or other companies, and in this sort of work that we do, there are usually no conflicts of interest. So we state just very simply, no conflicts of interest declared. Funding, we would say something like this. This course was supported financially by an anonymous donor, by Médecins Sans Frontières, and the Department for International Development, UK. So depending on who gave financial support, that is what you put under the funding statement. And finally, author contributions. Some journals don't ask for this. Some journals specify the way they like this to be written out. For example, the Public Library of Science journals, the PLOS journals, have a template for how they like author contributions to be written. But for this particular paper, this is how we would say it. We would say ADH and FG implemented, analysed, and wrote the first and subsequent drafts of the paper. All other authors contributed to the design of the project and the writing of the first and subsequent drafts. All authors read and approved the final paper. Thank you very much.